our feature of the evening, and why we're really all here. I know you love hearing about chapter business, but right, we're all ready to be engaged and enlightened. So I'd like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Hani Amari. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Some new faces, but been part of the chapter here for about 4 or 5 months. I've been coming to the meetings, so I know some of you. And the ones that know me, they probably know me from PMI-GLC because I'm part of both chapters. So what I've prepared for you tonight is about change management and for business success by your PMP. And let's see why this doesn't work. Change management for business success by the PMP. And just to introduce myself, I started as a civil engineer, got my master's in construction management, and worked as a construction project management for about 10 to 12 years until I realized that I had to get a PMP to show credentials that I'm a project management professional. And then once I started studying for my PMP, that's when I got interested in going back to school again and finish my MBA. But because I had a lot of the MBA courses done, they told me I should do a doctorate in business administration. So I got my degree. So adding the two topics of project management professionalism and business strategies for companies and big corporations, I came up with a system and methodology for how I improve companies and businesses to do their work and how they can benefit from both systems. Before I start, I wanted to talk about this feature in LinkedIn. This is always what I do initially before I start my talk. I don't know if you guys know about this feature in LinkedIn. You can add the people that are in the room with this feature called Nearby. So if you have it on and you go and click on it, you can find everybody else in the room and try to connect with them. It's very easy just to show you. And the reason I always say that in the beginning of my talk is that one of the main reasons we have these events is so we can collaborate and talk to each other and maybe find interest in how we can help each other to grow and become better. So if you go to my networks at the bottom here, there's about 2 blue guys over here, and then there's a blue dot at the corner. When you click on it, the first one says find nearby. So when you click on that, it tells you who's around you, and if they're a new contact, you can connect with each other. So that's one way to connect with me. The other way to connect with me is through my website, CPMP, which stands for Construction Project Management Professional. .us/IM, and that's my LinkedIn page. So the roadmap that we're going to go through today is first understand what is change management. And then once we understand what change management is, we want to understand why PMPs are good for change management. Why are they the best champions or facilitators to do change management in organizations. And then I'm going to use a case study, which is actually my own activity at my company because I work as a quality manager and risk management partner in Brinker, which is a construction company, and how I apply the PMBOK framework into getting their quality management program. And then finally, we can see an example of a very interesting company that is using this change management to do innovations and actually get a big market share in construction. So actually, what I'm covering is a summary of a class that I teach in Wayne State University. So now we're in a class setting right now. So I'm going to be quizzing you and examining you during the presentation. But in that class, which is called Business Engineering, what I do is I cover the engineering and the project management part of it. also talk about the business and the Doctorate of Business Administration part. So I combined the two, and then what I try to accomplish is something called integrated business management, where you need to have the technical know-how of running a business and all these other things that we always talk about when we talk about project management, interpersonal skills, and how we can benefit from those things to get a very good business methodology and combine all those skills and knowledge into our companies. So hopefully by end of tonight, which is 2020, right? It's what, February 20th of 2020, hopefully by 20 seconds, you're gonna make it at the end of this night, you can make this paradigm shift where you're gonna learn how to use your thought and mindset as project management professionals in your companies. How many are you trying to become PMPs or studying for it or trying to get your PMP? Okay, good. The ones that already have the PMP, they should have as much passion and as much enthusiasm about being a PMP in their companies that their management, their co-workers, their teammates feel that this guy is different. He's really a professional. He's really into this PMP stuff. And one of the things that I was hoping to see tonight when they announced that there are 7 openings in the board, I would see hands saying, oh, I can volunteer, because this is based with what we're based on. We're based on volunteer time that we put into our professional organization to make it better. So I always face these things when I talk to companies. They always say, oh, this is the way we've always done it. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's forget about changes, whatever. It's going well the way it is. But what we wanted to do is, first of all, talk about change management in PMBOK. And when I talk about change management, the funny thing that happened when I invited some of my construction industry friends is that they were thinking I'm talking about claim management. This is funny. You know what claim management is in construction, right? Whenever a project changes, they claim money, they want extra money. So when I titled it as change management for business success, they were thinking I'm talking about let's get more money from the client by charging them more on changes. So this is a misunderstanding of the title in the beginning. So the other thing is that a lot of people don't look at PMPs as the champion for this. And this is what I'd like to do tonight, is both in your mindset and the companies that are invited here to understand what we're about as PMPs, to understand that we as PMPs could be the leaders for these change management. So we all know about halo effect, right? If you study for a PMP, I used Rita, I don't know what you study, but Rita talks about halo effect. And the halo effect says, well, somebody's very good in something technical maybe, or in their own discipline or their field, and they grow into becoming a manager of that function. And just because they're good at something, meaning technical, they think that they're good in management. Where, well, we have to tell them management is not just a science, it's also an art. So art and science needs to be done in order to become a good manager. And then we're going to look at what's the difference between a project manager and a project manager professional. Now, the other thing that I want you to think about is unlearning. A lot of difficulties that I have with my students when I teach them PMBOK, because I teach that also in Garden Stack, is that they've gone through a system for so many years, because you have to go through some experiencing projects before you become a project manager professional. Otherwise, you become a CAPM, not a PMP, if you don't have the experience. Is that they learned a methodology or framework or whatever. Now they want to learn the PMBOK framework, and it's kind of difficult for them to understand it, or they just understand it halfway. So the first thing you need to do is to unlearn some of those things in order to learn new stuff. So hopefully we can get to that paradigm shift together. And The prerequisite for that is an SQ, which is spiritual quotient, meaning that it's more than understanding and being intellectually ready to receive these things, but also emotionally quotient and also having that spiritual quotient where you understand things beyond what is given to you and you can see beyond that point. And an interesting book that I can introduce to you in regards to SQ is a book by Stephen Covey, and it's The 8th Habit. I know most of you probably read 7th Habit, right? Anybody doesn't know about 7th Habit? Okay. The 7 Habits actually is pretty good when it comes to improving your quality, your professionalism, and growing your career. But then in the introduction about his 8th habit, he talks about that it's not like as if I forgot the 8th habit, now I'm adding a new book to say, here's the 8th habit. He's saying within the 7 habits, there is a habit that is integrated in all of the 7. And this is the 8th habit. The 8th habit is the spiritual quotient that he's saying in order to have good quality in things and have passion for what you do is to have the 8th habit and understand what is your voice, what is the thing that you want to let the world know about you and your passion and what you do in this life, okay? So hopefully if you have that mindset of trying to find your own voice, you can probably benefit from this discussion a little bit and see a different perspective on the point. So the first part is talking about change management, and as you saw my first slide, I'm using the new PMI icons, and each one of them is related to my topic somehow, so we're going to look at that as we progress. And there's an interesting thing about these icons is that initially when they revealed the new logo, we were actually, it was in October, the global conference, we were over there for our LEM, which is the leadership in management, and then everything was the same as the previous logo, the color was the same thing, and then we got up in the morning, went to have breakfast, and we saw everything has changed, everything is colorful, everything is, and to me, the logo was like a childish gamification kind of thing where they just used some icons from a mobile app or something. But then later when I understood what they meant by all those icons and the colors and why they changed it. And the interesting thing was, yes, we had great 50 years, but we're looking for the next 50 years. And the way to look at the next 50 years is to grow into these 9 aspects of projects. And you know the 9 aspects, the collaboration, growth, vision, and so forth. So we're going to look at those slides, and I'd like you to get familiar with them. And these descriptions here tells you what those are. But again, I'm going to have all these slides available on the website, so you don't have to take notes or anything. Just focus with me. So it should be fine. So the first question for you is the quiz. What is the most important knowledge area for us as project management professionals? Out of the 10 knowledge areas that we have in PMBOK, which one do you think is the most important one as a project management professional? Stakeholder? Okay. Communication? Integration? See, nobody said time, cost, risk. You know why? Because you can hire an expert in each one of those fields to do it much better than you could. You can hire a team of maybe schedulers, cost managers, risk management if you want to do quantity risk management. I do risk management, but very qualitative. I don't do quantitative. So I hire a risk manager if I want to. I heard interesting ones like communication and stakeholder. Correct. Stakeholder and communication is very important as a project manager. And what we learned in PMBOK is that 70% of the project manager's time is spent on communication. But the most important knowledge area of all these 10 that makes you a great project manager professional is integration. Why? Because you can't delegate that to anybody else. That's your part to do. you have to integrate all these knowledge areas, all the information that comes here. You can get assistance for all of those other parts, but as a project management professional, you need to do the integration on your own. So in the integration management, again, we're reviewing our studies, and people that are studying for the exams have a chance to understand these things. I usually teach the integration management as the last chapter. Although it's chapter 4, I don't use it in the beginning because it gets people very confused when you talk about all these different things and they're not very familiar with it. So I teach chapter 5, which is scope management first, and then I go to cost, time, and every project manager is very familiar with those. And then I come back and try to kind of like sum up and kind of wrap it up with integration to teach them how we integrate all these different knowledge areas. And why do you think this is the most important or the difficult part of PMBOK? It's because every input and output of the PMBOK gets into this chapter where you need to know where they're going to affect your change management. Because this is where you're going to do your integrated change management. Another issue is when we discuss projects in PMBOK, and again, I have to clarify this to everybody when we talk about projects and operations, right? We talk about projects in PMBOK. We don't talk about operation management. The difference between project management and operation management is that projects are unique. They have an end and beginning, and you have this discussion about change management to drive a change within an organization. You're going from a current state to a future state. And operation is when something is routine. It keeps repeating every day until you need to do maybe an improvement, an efficiency review or something like that. That becomes a project. So the definition of projects that we get in PMBOK actually has points about driving change, implementing change, growing the company or the organization through a change management. And this is something that a lot of people miss, is that when they talk about change management, they always seek other experts. There are other new associations that are coming out as change managers, certified change managers, or whatever. But we as project managers are actually the initial people that people used to go to for these kind of stuff as new projects because they want to change something and they define a new project. That's why we were hired to do this. So you go from a current state to a future state. And this is actually from PMBOK, an excerpt from PMBOK that says that projects provide the means for organization to successfully make the changes necessary to deal with factors that are either external or internal factors that ultimately should link to the strategic objective of the organization and the business value of each project. Again, this is from PMBOK 6. One thing that we're going to discuss tonight is the changes that we're going to see in PMBOK 7. Has anybody looked at the PMBOK 7, the new one that they just have it out for review? No? Nobody looked at it? Oh. So how come I got it? I got the email, I got to look at it and study it. But not the whole chapter, it was like only the first 3 chapters. So actually I have a link of it here too, so if you want to look at it, you can download it and look at it. So there's 2 things when we talk about change in PMBOK. We have and this is what we need to really understand the difference between the 2. We have configuration management and then we have change management. And configuration goes to the product itself. Project management goes to the changes that we have from our project management plan, PMP. Okay. So another issue that PMBOK is PMI is looking at is changes in organization. So this is actually a practical guide for changes in organization. It's a different book that they have, and it's very interesting. It's a very good guide to look at. So, as we discussed, change management itself is a project, and it goes through a cycle of going through the different stages of implementing those changes. And this is actually, I took this one from another association that is trying to create the image that you need a separate change manager or expert to do this thing. However, what I'm trying to say is we as PMPs are actually the champions for change management. And everything that you see here is pretty much what we talked about. And the funny thing is, for example, this celebrates success. We might not have it now in our PMBOK, but in PMBOK 7 you're going to see it. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to look at the business success aspect and looking at the for a organization and how you need to go and talk to your boss or owner or whatever to say, hey, you got to look into PMBOK as a good framework to get the change management going in our organization. So we all have seen these things, right? Vision, mission, and all those objectives, and they became like some kind of cliche in most companies. Like, okay, we say these are our values, but we don't see it happening. Or we always talk about missions and visions, but nothing like that is going on in this organization. But actually, there's an interesting reading I want you to look at from Michael Porter. It's in the Harvard Business Review. It's called What is Strategy? And it's a very old, article, but it's very interesting. It compares different companies. For example, the story about Southwest Airline and how Continental wanted to compete with that, with Continental Light, and how they failed miserably. And actually, I just finished the Bright Line initiative course that they had. Anybody completed that? No?
Started.
Went through it? You completed it?
Started.
Oh, I started.
Not done yet.
Okay. It's very challenging, actually. It's a 4-week program, and it has a lot of assignments, a lot of homework and stuff. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. But in that Bright Line, they talk about Kmart and Walmart, how Kmart couldn't compete with Walmart because of, so those are the nitty-gritty stuff about strategy that you need to understand how having a well-defined strategy and how you can use that as your tactics for your tactics and objectives to gain better market share and better headway through the market. And it is difficult for people to really understand it unless they go through some kind of training on what is a strategy. And what we define in our realm of business administration, we talk about different things, and maybe it's different from what you've seen it before. But the mission is always, we look at it as the top, or self-actualization of the Maslow pyramid, I guess you can say. Vision is something that you can have for about 5 years maybe, but with technology and changes, whatever, you keep changing that, updating that, whatever. And then goals are long-term, 3 to 5 years. And then you go to objectives that are about a year. And then strategies are quarterly. You have to keep changing your strategy of how you want to do things. And then tactics is what you try to do on a monthly or weekly basis in order to get to these. So we use different tools to teach our students in Wayne State how to develop those and how to decide on these different items. But the most important part is when you develop your strategy, you want to develop a strategy that gains you a niche market. You guys heard about niche markets and how to develop niche market? So a niche market is a subset of the market with a specific product, service, or result that nobody else can compete with you. And there's an interesting reading, it's called Blue Ocean Strategy. Anybody read that book? Okay, we have 2 people that read it. Okay, good. It's by Chan Kim, and I really suggest that you read that book as well. It's a very interesting book. And what it talks about 2 different oceans. One ocean is an ocean where you have the sharks trying to compete with each other based on competitiveness. trying to eat each other as they are gaining market shares, and it's bloody and red. The other ocean is blue and safe and it's beautiful and it's away from everybody else because you're a whale outside of the ocean that everybody's trying to eat each other because they're competitive over things that are common and trying to gain market share based on the same stuff. So if you come with innovative and interesting ideas that nobody else can reach and nobody can compete with you, you're actually in that blue ocean niche market that we talk about. So again, in the strategy world, we say if we want to manage something, we have to measure. And you cannot manage something, if you can't manage it, you cannot change it. So this is related to how we look at change management. We have to have key performance indicators based on our strategic values and objectives. If we don't have KPIs to look into to make sure that we are measuring the correct strategy, we cannot make changes in our organization. So, again, we always talk about these things in PMBOK because we say, okay, from our operation we get project information, and then from the project information we collected actually the data. We collect the data and then it becomes information, and then from information we get 2 reports, and those reports can help managers to make decisions. Why do we want those reports? So the managers could make better decisions faster. This is the only reason we want good management plan, to give the tool necessary for managers to make decisions. And I've been to many, many organizations that they have this difficulty where it's not because it's difficult or they don't know how to do it. It's just that the person that wants to make the decision is hesitant to make it. And they kind of worry that what would happen if I make this decision or not. So the more information you give them, the more authority you give them, the good organization structure that they work in, all of that is going to help them to make better decisions faster. And that's what businesses need today. Another issue that a lot of companies are talking about is sustainability, making sure that we have a good business, sustainable business. And that means that we have to look at 3 P's. Not only the profit, we need to look at the planet, the earth that we live in, and the people that we serve. So these discussions, these interesting discussions, are coming together to shape the new way that PMI is thinking about itself. How many of you guys heard about the Bright Line Initiative? Okay, the people that were in the global conference heard all of them. That's why you have to get involved with PMI, their events, their conferences. We have a symposium coming up. Things like this is going to introduce you to these topics. So the interesting thing about Brightline is actually trying to look into the business aspects of PMI and how it can serve the business industry. So I have a little, actually this is my certificate that I got this morning actually. It's February 2020. I just tried to finish it before I come here and say, okay. But it is a 4-week program. It's free at this point. You can go get it for free. It's available for everybody to get it. So make sure that you use this opportunity to learn this thing. Let's see if this plays. Will this allow us we can get it?
To run a global organization is to be pushed and pulled by forces outside of our control. As leaders, we have a choice. Do we let these forces push us to and fro, changing only to stay afloat? Or do we do the pushing ourselves and our organizations to become transformative? Transformative organizations that don't just react, they act, charting new courses, evolving capability, and redefining expectations. At Brightline, we understand that great leaders must be energized. It's not enough to have a vision or even a strategy. Great leaders must harness the force of their entire organization, a force that comes from empowering their people, recognizing their vision, encouraging teamwork, and giving them the resources they need to become a force for change, a force for growth. As a global initiative of the Project Management Institute, we bring together leading experts to help unlock the knowledge, networks, and strategies leaders need to truly transform their organizations. Harness the power within your organization. Kickstart your transformation. Visit brightline.org.
Okay, so if you go to brightline.org, you can also register for this class through Coursera, I think it's called. And you can Coursera. And you can get the certificate for it too. So, so now we're going to get into how we as PMPs will be the leaders for change management. And again, keep in mind that I prepared this discussion in September, even before they came up with the idea or they introduced Brightline to everybody. So as a PMP thinking business-wise, I came up with these ideas. And then I was introduced to Brightline, understanding that, okay, it's not only me thinking that way, a lot of people are moving that direction. So, as project managers, we know that there are certain elements that make our project successful or poorly managed and unsuccessful. So, I'm not going to go through the whole 12 list, but the most important ones are, the first one that says meet business objectives. So if you don't meet your business objective, doesn't matter how well you did your project, you have to stop that project somewhere if it's not meeting the business objective. Even if it's going very well and you think it's going as planned. But if it's not meeting the business objective, you have to change it. So, and then you go through the whole thing about time, cost, whatever, and then it says manage change in a better manner. This is actually from PMI, how we define a successful project manager. So, who makes these changes? What are the important elements of making a change in an organization? So, we always talk about projects as important vehicle for change, but the people that are making the change are actually as important too. So they go through a learning curve. They go through a awareness and trying to get ownership and advocate the change. So this, going through this thing is actually a business strategy that requires the buy-in from your team and how you can get your team to help with that change initiative. And this human asset that we want to call is very valuable. It doesn't matter what processes you have, what systems you have, what methodology you have. If people don't believe in it and don't act with it, it's not going to happen. So this is why we say people are the most important element in change. And as project managers, I'm not talking about project management professionals yet. I'm just saying project managers from any other systems that, or based on their experience or whatever, they probably do the same thing that we do, right, as project PMBOK, because PMBOK is based on what? On the most common best practices, I want to say, or generally accepted best practices, right? That's the definition of PMBOK, is that they went through all the best practices and said, okay, this is generally acceptable. This is what most people are doing. So they have to have a schedule. They have to have a cost management. But what PMBOK doesn't do, it doesn't give you the methodology. It gives you a framework. You need to have a schedule. It doesn't tell you if it's CPM or Gantt chart or arrow on node or whatever. It doesn't tell you what kind of methodology to use, but it gives you the framework. So what is the difference between a project management professional and a project manager? As a project management professional, you have to understand what makes you different from other project managers. First of all, it's the philosophy that we have, the PMI-HV philosophy. Now, I probably heard this from Rita. I don't know if she coined it or not, but that's where we learned about PMI-HV. For example, one of the PMIism is, what is quality? Quality is not something that you say, oh, I'm going to just gold plate something and give it to the customer. Okay? If you gold plate something, you're not actually doing the project. You're just giving them something extra or something that they don't want. If you meet their expectation and their requirement, then you're meeting and you're doing good quality work. So this is part of PMIism philosophy, is that what is quality, how we look at things. So we collaborate and share best practices. That's one of the reasons we get into these meetings. I was just complaining about the setting of how we're sitting. Maybe we should face each other, maybe we should have circular tables or something. Because that's the point of getting here, is to know each other, work, talk to each other. I'm talking this time, next time I'm going to be sitting over there, and one of you guys is going to be talking here, and you're going to share your information and knowledge, and we can collaborate and learn from each other. So this is why we are part of this organization. It's continuous improvement. Now, I didn't get into TQM a lot, because this is, again, from another discussion, but total quality management is what was developed by Deming in the 60s. And most of the discussions we have about planning, doing, and checking and acting is based on Deming's TQM. And in the TQM that Deming developed had 14 rules, including taking care of the customers and the 6 C's that we talked about, commitments and things like that. And actually, Brightline is taking a lot of their ideas from the TQM as well. So these are not new discussions, just a new way to present it to businesses and kind of collect all that information. We are leaders. We don't manage people. Do you know the change that happened from PMBOK 5 to 6 was based on this one item only? How many people are PMPs from before or 5? Maybe 4 or 3. Okay. So people that are from PMP 5, they know that we had something called human resources, right? One of the chapters was human. That's what I got, right? Like, I got my PMP on PMBOK 5. So in PMBOK 6, they changed it. What did they call it? Resource management, right? You're saying it's not only human we're talking about, team development is part of it, but we can't manage humans. We can lead them, but we cannot manage them. They have to be empowered to do the work themselves. You can't push them or you can't manage them to do so. So this is the change that happened from PMBOK 5 to 6. And then we emphasize on interpersonal skills. That's actually what Brightline is all about. Interpersonal skills. It's based on 10 principles to get people involved in business and making change and innovative ideas and things like that. And it's very, very interesting. You should all try to go into it and try to learn it. And the most important part of our professionalism is based on our codes of ethics and the conduct, the professional conduct that we have, and the volunteerism that we do. So putting this list together, what I tried to do is compare all the interpersonal skills that we have with the different chapters of PMBOK, and to let you know that just becoming a good project management professional doesn't mean that you have to abide just by those 10 knowledge areas. You really need to get into the interpersonal skills. And unfortunately, in PMBOK 5 and 6, it was part of the appendix. But now, in 7, you're going to see in chapter 1, 2, and 3. That's what we're going to see in the exposure draft of PMBOK. So if you go to this address, you can download it right now, the PDF. I put the PDF that was given to me to look at. And you can see in that there's a lot of changes to how PMBOK is looking at itself. And it's adding a lot of those interpersonal skills into that. So again, we as business managers always talk about organizational behavior, human resource development, interpersonal skills, personality assessment. Why do we talk about these things? To make sure that we have the proper team, we can solve problems together, make decisions better, faster. So all these discussions you're going to see in PMBOK 7. So now as a construction project management professional, had to come up with a way to introduce PMBOK to my friends in the construction industry. And one of the things that I've done is to bring them in a construction community to collaborate and discuss this. And unfortunately, it's been a very tough ride. I can't get a lot of the construction industry people to buy into PMBOK. And the reason is they think that their way of doing is the perfect way. They don't need to learn from anybody else. They're project managers. And actually, I was in that position too. I was actually fighting my mentor for 3 to 4 sessions, telling him, no, this is how we do it. And he's like, calm down, just bear with me. I'm going to show you why the PMBOK way is a better framework.
That must be why all new homes are built on time.
On time. Actually, that's one of the items that I'm going to show you at the end. That if they don't follow PMBOK and they keep doing this, this is what people think about contractors and about construction industry. And we're going to see a good case study on that one item.
Annie, isn't there a supplement? Okay.
Yes.
Specific to construction, yeah.
So,
I do want to add one thing. On the side, I decided to take my Michigan builder's license test. They reference PMBOK all throughout.
oh,
Did it really?
Yeah.
that's new. Because
Yeah.
I studied that in 1996. I didn't see any reference.
Yeah, no, it's.
There was no. But anyway, the construction extension, as Heather said, is actually an extension to PMBOK for construction industry, which I really don't like. And the reason is they kind of added 3 chapters to the knowledge areas that we already have. For example, they added health and safety, and they added financial management. And these things are already in PMBOK, right? They're part of risk management. We can just put that in there and say, this is in this chapter, look at these items. So that's the reason people say, maybe PMBOK is not very complete, we need an extension for it. What's that?
Say that wanted to sell another book over here.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. They can, actually, it's good to explain all the 10 knowledge areas, the first 10 knowledge areas, but to add 3 more to it and say this is 13, 14, 15, the same way that I was talking about the 8th habit. It's not a new book that you need. You should have known that this is part of the original PMBOK, but for some reason, I don't know. I mean, this is something that I have to talk to PMI Global about. But anyway, in construction, we look at these 4 elements, the time, scope, cost, and quality all the time. But then to understand how these other elements, the stakeholder management, communication, things play a good role in managing your project, that's where we have more difficulty with the construction industry. Another thing is, when I got into project quality management position, because I always was in a construction project management position, now it was a different realm. It was more difficult to try to get buy-in from my team to make them understand the importance of my work. Because the owner required it, but the contractor doesn't know why we need a full-time project quality manager. So I had to actually develop my system, my methodology for quality project management, and I based it on PMBOK. And the interesting thing about the quality in construction project is that the risk factors that we have in the construction project, other than the time and cost and quality that we always talk about, the compliance goes under scope, for example. We can go say requirements and scope management, whatever. Safety goes under risk. But the construction industry bases its philosophy about risk management in construction based on these 5 elements. Okay? So I took the construction extension, and in the construction extension, there are 10 reasons for bad quality. And this fishbone diagram is actually what I really created by myself. I mean, I had to create the fishbone diagram for them to show, okay, you know what, let me show you where the risks are, how these problems are going to happen in the project or whatever. But then the construction industry tells them that lack of project management system is one of the most important reasons why projects fail. And they have to look into a better system of quality management. So what you need to do in order to do a good quality management is to have a good scope management and try to control those changes. So again, we're going back to the discussion about change management, but This is an actual activity that I did for my company just to show them why it's important to have a framework and why I used the PMBOK framework for that. So in PMBOK, we have a chapter on quality management, right? Is that sufficient, do you think, for your business just to use this framework and say, oh, I know quality management, this is how we're going to use and do quality management? It gives you a framework. It doesn't tell you what to do, how to do it. Okay? So this is what happened. I created the construction quality management system, and I called it CQM.us, and I made a website for it. So, what happened is my project was in DTE Energy, and they used a system from Construction Industry Institute, and it's called Advanced Work Packaging System. And it's a very interesting system. It's a very good practice to do for construction, but it was very complex and wasn't doing well in big projects like ours. Okay, it's a good idea. Maybe it's a nice, interesting thought, but it's very tedious and it takes a lot of time and a lot of difficult way to do it. So what I did a research on different systems that are available. And again, I'll go back to my original discussion. As project management professionals, we are professional in looking at all best practices. Okay? Now I'm trying to develop a methodology, and I went through CMAA, Lean Construction Industry Institute, the ISOs, and what I actually did, I actually went to a U.S. Army Corps of Engineer class, and I went through their system to learn their way of construction quality management and try to learn from their methodology. So I developed my own methodology. I used the TQM thinking. I added the PMBOK framework. I took all those ideas about how to have a good team where the project manager, supervisor, project engineer, account manager, and the quality safety manager are all working in a team, helping each other, supporting each other, and moving from just an inspection to total quality management where we're not playing the blame game anymore. We're trying to find root causes and trying to find how to solve those issues. So this is the system that I developed, and actually I added the risk management to it because our company wanted to do subcontractor default insurance. Anybody knows what it is? Okay. So it's part of our risk management for our construction projects where we don't want to pay a bonding or insurance company. We just kind of manage it in-house. Okay? So I added items about that, and you can go to this website cqm.us, and I have more detail. And this was actually one of the presentations I did in November, just to go over this development of this system. So I did my own guidelines and instruction, and these are actual photos of the project and how I monitored that initiative to make sure that this change management that we had in our company, because our company didn't even have a quality manual, and I had to develop that for them. And it was funny that two of our other companies that were helping us, whatever, gave me their quality manuals, and I tried to even benchmark from their stuff. And it was funny that my boss went to another company and said, "Oh, he stole it from this company." I said, "I didn't steal it. They gave it to me," and then we call it benchmarking. So it's okay that you go through different systems and benchmark from them. So how do we put all this thing together in an organization? Well, I had a very difficult time to convince my company to say, hey, PMBOK is a good framework. Me as a project manager professional can do this change in the company. I even did training sessions and lunch and learns and tried to educate people on how the system works and why it's important to do it. But what I'm advocating actually is a change through all organizations to have PMOs. Everybody knows what PMO is, right? Project Management Office. Okay? Now some other places might be Program Management Office, Portfolio Management Office, but PMO is where we as project managers can really do a good job of presenting what is best done by a PMP. In June last year, We had Ryan Ramirez in PMI-GLC, and he did a nice presentation of Barton Mellow's effort in creating a PMO for their company. And unfortunately, 2 months ago, they had a big restructuring where they restructured the whole thing, and all his hard work just actually went down. But he is also a PMP, and he was doing the same thing in his organization, trying to make changes. And this is what I try to tell all our PMPs, is that I know a few PMPs in my organization that they don't even care about updating themselves with the new information, coming to these meetings, getting involved with PMI, or even get like PDUs or whatever. And we have to like wake them up and say, you know what, this is important. This is how we can use PMI. This is how we can use all the effort that we had put into passing this exam and getting this exam done. I don't know how much you guys studied for it, but I studied probably 3 months for this thing, like two hours every night to be able to pass it in one shot. So you have to kind of like put a lot of effort and investment into getting this thing, but if you don't use it, it's just a waste of your effort and your time, whatever. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people that don't pass it the first time, they come and say, oh, the PM block is not that great, and PMP is not that important, whatever. Just because they didn't pass it, they try to downplay it, the importance of it, whatever. But we as PMPs have to kind of go back to our organizations and tell them why we need a PMO office. Why do you think we need a PMO office? Well, again, to wrap up all the different discussions we had about business success and how businesses work and so forth. If we have the vision and mission of the company on the top and the organization chart, this is what usually is given as the benefit of the project management office. It's at this level. It's actually close to the operation and planning management. It's where the strategic plans are given to the project management location in order to make sure that all the proper resources are used to drive the initiatives of the company and the objectives the company has. Okay? So it's a place where you can do your strategic planning, you can do your develop your standards and methodology. That's one thing that we are hurting, for example, in construction industries. Every project has its own project manager, and that project manager does it in his own style. And it's acceptable, it's approved. It's like, oh, he has his own style. Like, what do you mean he has his own style? We have only one good methodology to use in this company, and this is based on, for example, years of experience, organizational assets that we have, and other things that we discussed in PMI. But again, it helps with the organizational change management. If anything needs to change within our organization, it can go through the PMO office. And it's where all the project managers from different disciplines can get together and work together collaboratively in order to achieve the project output that we're looking for a better business outcome. And this is actually where you have the business management aspect of your goals, objectives, your critical success factors, and the KPIs, getting with the measurement and metrics that you collect from your project in order to meet and match for better successful projects and business outcomes. So, going back to the issue with the construction management and the innovation, I'm going to introduce an interesting company for you. It's called Katira. How many of you have heard about this company? Wow. Okay. It's a very popular company now because it's growing so fast. Actually, the co-founder, the founder of this company is a co-founder of Tesla. And they were founded in 2016, or actually 15. And now, and this is actually maybe a little bit late it's from last year, so 2019, they had about $4 billion in venture capital, and they had $3 billion in project backlog. You know what that means in construction industry? To have backlog? We don't have backlog. We just form another team, get another, because most of our construction management companies are project-based, or their structure is based on project, they're not matrix. So they just form another team and hire project managers, project engineers, whatever, and send with them to the new project. So we don't have backlogs in our world. We usually just form another team and send it and make it. But this company is actually having a backlog because they have a system that is totally different from other project, construction project management companies that you've seen before. So I'm going to show you a short video of their operation, hopefully.
P90 is a project where we're taking a building from slab up to the keys for a customer in 90 days.
We're trying to take our traditional build, which stands in the 120 to 150 day range, down to 90, and then even lower through continuous improvement.
K90 is our endeavor to do construction differently.
We want to bring in manufacturing principles and control the environment similar to the way a factory would be run.
One thing we've tried to do is really advance how we handle our material logistics.
So on K90, material delivery doesn't stop when the material comes to the job site. We take materials all the way to the installation point to get a higher utilization out of the workforce.
We of course make use of our materials audit app and audit dashboard. What that does is it gives the team a heads up of exactly what materials are coming and when they will arrive.
Some of the innovative products that we're using out here are bath kits and wire and wall. The idea of the bath kit is everything you need to assemble a bathroom, be able to do it in a matter of hours. And so all the materials come crated up within the kit.
One of the things that makes K90 possible is a higher level of completion coming out of the factory from our own products. An example of that on K90 is doing electrical wire in the wall panel as they are delivered to the job site. That allows us to expedite utility roughing in the field and spend less labor hours in the construction environment.
One of the things that differentiates this job site is the advanced planning that went into it. We have every single activity on site by every single person planned to the labor hour and the duration.
We have an opportunity here to look at every single step of the construction process. This isn't just about building a building in 90 days, this is about changing the way we do business and changing the way we do construction. And the only way we can do that is the amount of data collection that we do throughout the process to drive improvement down the line.
The Apollo Construct platform gives us a better feedback mechanism and connection to the other organizations in our company. Throughout the entire company, there have been people dedicated to this project, and it's become a wide web of skill sets to do this, and getting everybody engaged in a common goal has really driven a better product out of the company.
Well, we've got a well-rounded mix of people from aerospace, from manufacturing, from gas and oil, but construction as well, so we can blend all these different thoughts to solve this problem. We completed the project in just 86 working days without multiple crews, overtime, or weekends. We are really proud of the quality of this build. It came together quickly without sacrificing craftsmanship or amenities.
K90 is a big step, but it's just the first step. Everything that we learn here needs to be packaged, implemented, and integrated to all of our other job sites.
What comes next in the journey is really scaling up what we're doing here. This is a pilot, it's a building, but it's a real proof of concept from what we're doing. One of the key outputs from this is our overall training program. So we'll use this to train people at all levels, in all roles, both on the process and job expectations, give you the tools to actually scale this up and repeat it.
We want to improve the way we do business on every job site that Katerra has. We want to decrease the number of days it takes for us to build every building that we're involved in. And overall, we want to change the industry by disrupting it from the inside.
A lot of key words in these clips. You gotta watch it maybe several times to understand what they mean. For example, like disruption. What is disruption? Disruption is what causes change. So it's either willingly you're going to change, or somebody disrupt your business and your market, and you need to change and try to match their speed. So again, how would you think something like this would be possible without a project manager professional to manage that project, that manage that innovation for change? So I hope with this 1 hour presentation, I mean, this is probably a 10-session class in Wayne State to teach students about project management and business management and how these all play together. But hopefully you as project management professional understood what I mean as my passion for project management professionalism and how I could help my business in making better decisions and better change management and better business management if they utilize an idea like PMI and what PMI has to offer. So I hope with this presentation you go back to your organization and say, I'm a PMP, this is what I feel, and this is what we should do from tomorrow, because this is what PMI is about. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Discussion? All right,
I have one.
yeah.
So, honey, what's the number one roadblock from big companies accepting what you think about being a PMP and PMI?
Well, the first thing that we have to have is top management support. And the reason we don't have top management support is because top managers are not aware of these things. I mean, they don't try to update themselves with the latest and greatest information and technology. They think what got them to the point where they're successful now is going to guide them through all the way to the future. And what they need to understand is the time has changed. The information system, the way that people are learning, the way people are thinking is going so fast and quickly that we're not in the same market that we used to be 20 years ago with all the data and information technology that we're putting in the fast speed of advancement and innovation that's going on.
So I'm gonna add one thing to that. The number one thing in construction, I'm not having somebody abide by it or follow this, is they think they're at risk. And the hierarchies and the bosses don't wanna be at risk. And the PMP for 21 years, 4 companies that are $2 billion. I've been in that environment. If you go in quietly, make them a lot of money, they'll listen to anything you have to say. That's the road, that's the way, how do you get rid of the roadblock? Once you start developing your reputation and you make the money and they don't find you at risk. If you go in and you tout this language to somebody that doesn't know it, and they've been doing it for 30 years and they're making their executive vice president, it's not a sell you're gonna win.
Sure.
Right?
Of course.
So, just an input.
I would just say that the reason that construction company can do everything differently is because the owner thought that.
Yeah.
Sure.
It came from the very top.
Top down.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, just to comment too, I work in the auto industry, and I think that's exactly what they're doing, is modeling what they do every day in the auto industry. With all of the pre-assembly fabrications, knowing your material logistics and having all that flow, that they're just doing what the auto industry's been doing for a long time.
And one point to
Manufacturing
the
something
profit, mindset is that if you want to have a sustainable business, if that's the only goal that you have and that's the only thing that the owners and business owners think about, they're not going to be sustainable. I mean, it's going to go as far as the profit comes in, but it's not going to be sustainable. So you have to think all the 3 factors of how this is going to affect people. Because when we talk about product development, for example, in business management, we talk about how companies used to compete with better quality products. Then they thought, okay, everybody can produce good quality products. Then let's give them a good, maybe, solution to problems. So now companies are talking about solutions. They're not talking about best product. They say, we solve your issues or problems. Now the next round is actually getting into experience. Now everybody knows how to make good quality products. Everybody knows how to come up with good solutions. The new discussion is, how is your experience with my company, with my product, is better than X and Y and Z. So companies like Katera, if they just want to say, oh, we're just manufacturing-based companies and we just go quickly and do everything quickly, maybe it gets them as far as maybe a few years. But then there's another company that comes and says, I pay attention to LEED, for example, the environmental effect of having these buildings and how I can be more. So what I'm saying is, to be more sustainable in this business, you have to look at more than just profit and making money. But again, at your level and where you are, how you affect the organization is very important. Maybe like what James was saying, actually James is a great consultant for construction companies in this field, so I'm probably going to invite him to talk for us one day just on this subject. So invite your construction friends. is that we've been doing a lot of business and process improvement for these companies, and as he said, they want the bottom line to be affected in a positive way in order to buy that idea or whatever, but they have to change that mindset too. So that's one. Any other questions, any other ideas, thoughts, maybe? Again, I didn't want this to be a construction industry discussion. I just brought the construction industry case as a case study, so you can compare it to your own organization and to your own work and say, how can I apply the PMI principles in order to better my job? And like I said, the methodology that I developed for the CQM, now they all understand what it is and how they can use it. They use it for marketing purposes, but they don't use it much when I tell them how to do things. They don't like it.
Question on change management that you were saying, like say the company is working in a certain, going in a certain direction and things are okay. So for instance, like especially in the IT industry where people are working in a waterfall methodology or whatever the hybrid that they call themselves.
Right.
What are some of the ideas?
Actually, if you go through the bright line discussions that they have, the interesting part of it is they show a lot of videos, for example, from different companies that went through the same stuff. When we talk about transformation and change management, is that it's due to disruption. Disruption comes either from external or internal forces. So if you don't feel disruption from outside, it means that you haven't done enough study, because the competitor is going to come to you from a direction that you didn't. If you think that, oh, we're going okay, and it's going to go okay for another 100 years like this, you definitely doing something wrong. I mean, that's why, for example, you see like railroads just went out of business because they were thinking that people are going to always need railroads and they're going to be dependent on it. So they invested a lot of money into these central stations. Now you can see this Michigan Central Station that we're rebuilding, breakers, rebuilding or renovating. It's such a huge thing, and they just use it for 10, 15 years and then they had to shut it down because they weren't looking at the innovative ideas that were around them and how people are going to utilize cars at the time, and there are going to be roads and people not going to be needing trains to go all the way, like everywhere. So to say that if you're going okay in a direction and keep going like that, to me is like, it doesn't make sense at this time anymore, because there's always going to be competition, there's always going to be new innovative ways to do it. And you can be more efficient. I mean, if you're good at something, you can always do change management to become more productive, more efficient, get more market share. So all those changes are change management.
So
when the management doesn't buy it.
That's the problem.
So I think there's, right, as we talk about change management, there's a couple different levels of change management, right? We always, from a PMI side, there's always discussion about a project is a change because we're going to do something different, right? Or there's disruption. There is another layer of change that is all about the people. Not the, it's all about the people, how they're going to handle the change. Hanning mentioned all the soft skills, right? And this is a huge place to do that. And there's tons of different methodologies in terms of, what people choose to use for that people side of change. You've got ADCAR by ProSci, you can just Google change management and you'll get a litany of information about that. So, the one piece that the PMBOK alludes to, from my opinion, right, is they talk a lot about change management if you're making a scope change to a project or things like that, but it really doesn't cover the people side at the depth that it needs to, in my opinion. And that's where some of these supplemental methodologies in terms of managing the people side of change can really make a difference.
Actually, it has a lot of those discussions in building a team and developing a team and talking about team development, but puts all those discussions in appendices.
Yep.
They said go to appendix and read about it. And that's what got me very interested in pursuing my BBA, because I was thinking about personality changes and differences and how I can use business psychology to get like team building and trust building issues done, whatever. So if you really go deep into it, you'll get interested to read more stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, is that PMI by itself is just a framework. It doesn't give you all that meat that you need to become a very good project management professional. That's why coming to these meetings, like pursuing additional PDUs and trying to read and go through like different webinars is going to add to your project management professionalism. And can continue maybe our discussion and collaboration in the future too. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yellow. Money's in the bottom of the gray box.